And we're live.
Good morning, everybody. This is another Love My Tool TV session with our great friends and sponsor Ixia, and of course Keith Bromley, an old friend. And we got Denny back. I don't know where he's been. He won't tell us, but he disappeared forever. And now we got a gentleman from FireEye named Martin. Martin, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. FireEye used to be a pretty small company, but now through acquisitions and new management, they have grown to be a powerhouse in the security arena. So, Denny, you take it away, and then Martin will let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Tim. I actually know, this is way back when I was still in the technology business and running my own company, which looking back is amazing. That's almost 10 years ago. But Ixia, and both Ixia and FireEye were much smaller back then. And so I know of both companies, but the point is that I'm very happy to have Keith Bromley back again. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning.
Yeah.
And don't forget, guys, Ixia's name has changed to Keysight now, so we're we're officially Keysight Technologies.
I haven't decided how to remember that name yet, but because that might change tomorrow.
Well, we could.
Yeah. Anyway, so Keith, we're doing another episode on visibilities, and my understanding is that we're going to bring in the security angle. And so the question I have for you right away is: are we going to do a show on security with visibility or security without visibility? Because one could be a very long show.
I'm hoping it's one with visibility.
Good.
That's the one I signed up for.
Okay, all right. So with that, why don't you introduce our new friend?
Okay, so we have Martin Holste here with FireEye. And so FireEye and Ixia/Keysight have had a good long history of working together. We go into multiple accounts together. As you're going to find out in the rest of the podcast here, visibility and security are very synergistic. So it's worked out to have this relationship with them. Martin, you want to introduce yourself then?
Sure, thanks. Hey, I'm really excited to be here. I'm the cloud CTO for FireEye, and so making sure that we have good security solutions that are finding bad guys in the cloud is kind of my biggest part of my job, along with some other evangelism and just teaching. And so what we really found on the cloud side is that your normal go-to ways to monitor the network are much more difficult. And so that's where we've been fostering this relationship with Ixia for a number of months now. It's been really interesting, and it's a great tool for the job, and one of the only ways to really get in and get a look at what's happening on a cloud network, because your normal methods of doing a spam port or a tap are generally not there. So you're left with either going with an inline device and creating a point of failure, or going with something a little more creative. And so that's why when we were introduced to the Ixia Cloud Lens solution, it was really a great use case for us.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Martin, as I said, in my last company, I work a lot with two partners. And so I want to kind of talk a little bit about what's it like to sell a tool when there's no visibility in the network?
It's very difficult. You have really limited options, and you're kind of picking between plan B and plan C.
Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make that selling process very smooth, huh?
Right.
It's hard to demonstrate. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and especially depending on the product line. So we have some product lines where that doesn't really affect it on event monitoring, things like that. But then when you look at what's historically been our flagship product on network monitoring, that's where we have a real problem, because we need to get access to the packets in order to apply that decade worth of expertise on monitoring network traffic and finding the bad guys in there.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ixia provides a layer of what's called the visibility tools, right? These are people might call it packet. What do they call it these days, Keith?
Packet brokers, network packet brokers.
Yes. Yep. Yes. So we're still on brokers. Okay.
Yes.
So
I hate that word. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I
It,
know.
it
Reality
seems to
kind
be
of.
sticking, so
I know. I gave up on that. So Martin, what do you know about that product line? And then follow-up question is that how does that really help you?
So there's I think the most interesting thing about the XD Cloud Lens product is that it runs in a lot of environments as a Docker container, and that not only makes it a lot easier to install in Linux environments, because it doesn't necessarily have to worry about overwriting system files, things like that, but it also has a really important capability because of that. You can get visibility into container traffic, and that's really an emerging technology in the enterprise. Really in, I would say 2016, it started to take off, and in 2017, it's become pretty mainstream. And now in 2018, it's almost the norm in a lot of forward-looking companies. And so getting that visibility between containers is really critical. And so that's one of the most exciting things to us about
yeah, and that use case is a little different than the typical network packet broker that where we've deployed with FireEye in the past, because we've done the packet broker that you can put inline or out of band that will capture the data and then send it on to tools like the FireEye IPS solution and so forth. And we can do load balancing, heartbeats to the tools, and serial data chaining of information to different tools, and like an inline solution, or we can do a fan out of the data to multiple tools, IDS, DLP, or whatever, in an out-of-band situation. Here with the Cloud Lens, it's really more like a tap for the cloud, and so we can go in, make a copy of the data packets, and then send those specific packets that people are looking for over to the FireEye device in the cloud network, and so we forward those directly over. It's that Cloud Lens doesn't really have the deduplication, a lot of the filtering and stuff that a network packet broker does. So we've got a virtual packet broker we can deploy as well. But Cloud Lens is great for getting access to that east-west traffic, and so for that packet data in the cloud environment.
Talk a little bit about the history of that product.
It's been around for a couple years now. It actually, we started off like 4 years ago when we had the Phantom Virtual Tap, which was really for virtual data centers. You could load it into the hypervisor and get a copy of the east-west traffic within the virtual environment. And we then branched out, moved on to where we've got the Cloud Lens product, where we've got Cloud Lens Public, where you can put it into a public cloud environment like Azure, AWS, something like that, or you can deploy it separately with what we call Cloud Lens Private. And that's where you can put it into a private cloud, your own private cloud, or you can put it into the virtual data center and put it and insert it in as a VM, and then you can still capture that east-west traffic. So there's two versions of that now, and then the older product, the Phantom Virtual Tap, is fading away.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, I think it was a couple of days ago where there was an article talk about Apple and iCloud, that actually iCloud is essentially Google Drive repackaged. I mean, it just broke my heart. It's like going to Chevron stations and realize that you just filling up with Shell gas. It just, you know, not that one is better than the other. It's just that I pay good money for iCloud. So I guess my point is that from the user, I mean, it just gets so complicated nowadays with cloud, right? You just don't know where all your assets are.
Well, and then to me, and I think Martin could expound better on this, but to me, one of the things I even get confused on is the cloud provider will tell you, oh, we've got all this security technology, we've got all this security taken care of, yada, 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 but it's really on their infrastructure. It's not in your instance. Within your instance, you still need to be worried about security. There may be some basic access list of data coming in from IP addresses into your instance that's filtered on or whatever by the service provider. But after that, who knows what you got in your network? And if you want to do performance troubleshooting, or if you want to look at security like you would here with the FireEye solution, you still need to go and get your own copy of packet data and forward that over to the tools. And I don't know if you want to comment more on that one, Martin or Tim, or...
Yeah, Martin, actually, go ahead and comment on that, because what do you say to a customer when we walk into their conference room and the guy's like me, he says, "Look, I got everything taken care of. I got ACS on one side and Google Drive on the other side. They said they're going to take care of me. What are you going to do?"
Yeah, so cloud's interesting. There's a shared responsibility model where they'll make sure that their data centers aren't getting hacked and that their the hosts that are serving the virtual machine guests aren't hacked. That's their problem, but everything else is still your problem. They've done a lot of things to make that easier. So I kind of say that cloud security is easy on one hand because patching is easier, inventory is easier because you have APIs to do all of that. But cloud security is also harder because you have a lot more app logic that you have to keep track of. So using your Google Drive example, do you know who's downloading the files from Google Drive? Who's auditing that? Do you know how that's working? So from a service and a platform perspective.
Uh-oh, we lost him.
Yeah, we lost Martin, but he'll be back.
In your data center as well for all the virtual machines that you're hosting. So that's really where Cloud comes in.
And you know what bothers me is people do have this isolationist kind of thought. It's like, hey, I got it covered, but they don't realize how easy it is for the hackers. And a lot of these companies that do hold your data, containerize your data, they don't spend a lot of time and a lot of effort. They, you know, especially now with just one of the recent releases saying that somewhere between 89 and 96% of deployed applications are either already hacked or easy to be hacked because they exist on a previous program that's been hacked. And I get frustrated when people tell me, oh, don't worry about it, I got all your data secure. I want a garbage can and run to a corner and throw up, because it's not true. And that's why you need surveillance equipment. You need to have access to that data, and you need to monitor it. But I am hoping that the dark web will eventually run out of
well, Tim, before
dating.
you and I had before we were entrepreneurs. You and I had both been professors, right, in the teaching professions, and you and I know that it's a lot easier to teach people who know that they don't know. Yeah, it's a lot harder to teach people who don't know that they don't know, right? I want to get back to Martin again, because Martin is I find his product very, very interesting. But Martin, you actually came from an acquisition. You came from another company that was acquired by FireEye, and I imagine that they did that because you had a very unique technology, and you became a very important piece of the entire puzzle. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about the uniqueness of your solutions and why it was so important to FireEye.
Sure. So it's gone down as one of the most interesting Silicon Valley acquisitions, I think, from at least in the security space when FireEye bought Mandiant. The reason that they bought Mandiant, I was with Mandiant at the time, was because of the knowledge, the incident response knowledge. And so that's for the last 5 years really fed our entire product and services line, is knowing what I like to call the answers at the back of the textbook, which is we know how the bad guys got in because we're the ones doing these really high profile incident responses. And so we'll build that into our products and say, look, we don't need to guess at how the bad guys work. We know exactly how they work because we're the ones that show up to clean up the mess. And so we use that knowledge to retroactively build that into our product lineup, so that when we build a feature, you know that we built it because we've seen that need from the customers that needed our incident response capability.
And how big were your company when it was acquired? You said 5 years ago?
Yeah. So I think we were about 500 employees with Mandiant.
Wow. Okay.
When we were acquired.
Okay, that's not a small company then.
And Mandiant, by the way, is one of the principal, as far as I'm concerned, in the industry for coming in and helping people recognize their issues and helping them hopefully shield up before they have to mitigate. You know, it's always easier to prevent than to clean up. And you guys have had to clean up some big messes.
That's right. And so each time we clean up a big mess, we write it up internally, and then we debrief our product owners and make sure that we are building in features that will address how the attackers got in the first place.
What's the old adage, Keith? You can't fix stupid, but you hope you can fix what stupid did.
Yeah, stupid means billable hours, Tim. Remember that.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry.
So, Keith, you work with many tool vendors. I mean, that's your job, right? And,
exactly.
And we always talk about how you know, in the visibility business, in the visibility tool business, we have so many different vendors that we have to address. Security is an important piece, no? Of
Oh,
course.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, if you get breached or you have some sort of problem, you're going to hear about it. And what's
Mm-hmm.
even more scary is what you don't know. I mean, if you find out there's a problem, great, but what haven't you found out? So there's a lot of things that you need visibility. There's things hiding in the blind spots in your network. And so
How about
that's where we try to help out with like Fire on these guys is shine a spotlight on those areas so they get the right data and then they can go process it and come up with the solution as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
how is GDPR going to? I mean, from my perspective, GDPR is going to make your business go through the roof because you know some companies, the medium companies, are going to want to prevent problems, but the big companies will just pay the fines. Um, but how is it going to affect your business? Martin.
So it's one of the first things our customers ask for, in EMEA especially. They want to know, what our strategy is for making sure that their security data is staying where it should. And generally, that's a pretty easy answer for our cloud-based products. The vast majority of them run in the Frankfurt data center for Amazon, the Frankfurt region, and that satisfies quite a bit of them. It's a complicated subject. I'm not an expert entirely on GDPR. But generally speaking, there are pretty straightforward answers for making sure that your data stays where it should. And one of the benefits of the cloud is that you can cookie cutter out solutions from one geographic region to another in an automated, formal way. And so addressing things like GDPR is actually a little bit easier in the cloud compared to your traditional data centers.
Yeah, but it's something you got to do something about. You can't. Customers can't wait till the data leak has occurred. A lot of companies have gone out of business because people have lost confidence in them. So you don't want to get fined, and you don't want your name out there saying you did not protect your customers' data. So
Right,
it's
absolutely.
an imperative that you engage people like you.
Right. Yep, staying ahead of that's really important, and it's obviously a smoother process if you know it ahead of time. And I would say, people have been fearful enough of GDPR that there's not really any organizations that aren't already thinking about it. So that's kind of the good news, is that I don't think it's surprising anyone. They're definitely planning for it, big or small. So I definitely have seen that.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of talk about it for a year and a half now. So you hope they have
Yeah.
prepared.
Well, I was in a conference not too long ago, not too many days ago actually, and I was told that one company didn't just point blank said, "We don't care. If we have a fine, we'll pay it and move on. We got enough money not to worry about it." I'm like, man, I wish I had that kind of money, but
Yeah. Well,
everybody's got a different process, right?
they're prepared. They're just prepared to spend money
Yeah.
on fines.
Yeah.
Right. In our stance, since we have a number of software as a service offerings, it's not an option for us. Our customers are depending on us to take care of that problem for them. So, we certainly have to be aware of GDPR and abide by it. It's not paying fines is not an option for us.
Yeah. I agree with you. I just don't understand people's ideas about, well, no big deal. We'll just pay a fine. I don't know. But it is imperative, and this type of information, people need to talk about security. They need to talk about visibility, access. And I built one of the first taps back in the 70s for WAN because that's all we had, RS-232, V35, and X11. And to this day, I don't understand why people fight that. It's like, oh, I don't want visibility. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I've seen some organizations where they kind of take the tactic of burying their head in the sand, and they say, well, I won't be legally liable if I don't notice that it's happening, and that is not a winning strategy. There's very few businesses that won't have massive repercussions if faith and trust in their ability to operate their business is eroded. And so I haven't seen that very much recently, but I would say 2 to 3 years ago, that was an occasional tactic I would see. And I'm happy to see that in the last year and a half, that seems to have gone away for the vast majority of companies.
Yeah, a lot of them, but not all of them, unfortunately. And I tell people, you don't want that on your resume. That
Right.
I was, network security, I was CISO, and my company was breached, and we lost, 1 billion records, and we were sued, and we paid fines. But that's cool. It didn't hurt me any. I just changed jobs.
Well, and there's other aspects to breaches. Sometimes a breach isn't just to steal credit card numbers. It may be to steal uh, uh, information relating to business deals. So it can really affect your bottom line. So we've seen cases where law firms be broken into to find pre-acquisition information so they can manipulate stocks, things like that. So sometimes you really can't know the overall impact of a breach until later. And so to think that, oh, well, if I get breached, it won't matter to my bottom line can be a very naive statement.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. But Keith, why don't you put this in perspective from, customers need to reach out. Who do they reach out to? Do they reach out and talk to you about ability access, or do they reach out to Martin team? How does that work for you? Where's the best way for customers to get to this team?
I would say yes. Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to the tool vendor or reach out to us directly, but either way, I mean, it's about looking at a visibility architecture, and that's what we've been trying to talk about for over a year now. You really need to plan things out. So, whether you talk to a tool provider first, you need to have packet brokers in there. You need to have the taps. If for a physical environment, if you want to go inline as well, you need some sort of you really want some sort of external bypass switch, because you want that additional reliability and safety of deploying your tools inline. If you're going to go cloud, you want to look at like a cloud tap solution. Ours is Cloud Lens, but you want some sort of tap for that. But you want to have a coherent plan as to how you're going to get the data, what data you want, and then where you're going to send it to, which type of tool that you need to satisfy the problem. And if you don't, it's like a coin. If you don't address both sides, the getting the data and then the processing of it, you're going to have a problem. And so, and you may be able to come back later and re-engineer things to get the data, but it's going to cost you more time, more money, and things you've done previously may have to be re-engineered as well. So that's the whole thing. Start. Any good security architecture should have some sort of visibility component already built into it. How are you getting the data? Where are you getting it from? What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, on cloud providers especially, there's a very low-hanging fruit use case for a deep packet inspection that's actually easier than just intrusion detection, and that's logging DNS queries. On places like Amazon and Azure, it's very difficult to get a record of all the DNS queries that servers have made, and those are really important for security visibility.
Absolutely.
So just small things like that can get you much farther along than if you're going without any visibility and flying blind.
Yeah, and forgiveness in this environment is not the best thing to ask for. It's best to say I did my best, but not to say, oops, I forgot about that. What's the old adage? Don't say oops in surgery. Don't say oops in this environment unless you've already planned to leave the company, I guess, is what I would say.
Actually, don't say anything in surgery.
Yeah.
Nothing ever good come out of conversation in surgery.
Yeah. But oops is definitely forbidden. Don't say oops.
Right. Oops or what? And wait.
or what's that? No, don't do that.
Yeah.
No.
Well, Tim kind of we have a nickname for Tim. We either call him the tap preacher or the visibility preacher. And one of the problem with preaching is that people think that you're bringing bad news, right? They don't want to hear it, right? The thing is that bad things happen to people and happens to you too, and you don't want that. So it's best to be prepared. I think that's really the message here. It's best to be prepared. It's not that hard. It's just not that hard to actually do the work beforehand, so that when you need it, you have it, right? And that's what we're talking about is be able to see what you're doing, be able to have visibility in your network, and so that when someone comes along like Martin, who needs to work with you on security, you have it. When someone else need to come and work with you on something else, you have it. It should be part of your investment. Just we've been talking about for so long, it almost sounds silly, but it's true, right?
Yep. And you got companies like FireEye and like Ixia, Keysight, that can help you address these. It's not a mortal sin to call someone and say, hey, I don't know what to do.
Right, absolutely. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's one thing that I help customers with a lot is, they're saying, we're developing our cloud strategy and what should we be doing to secure ourselves in the cloud, because you guys are the ones responding to all these breaches, how best to protect us. And so that's a major part of what I do, is just working with companies to understand that shared responsibility model that we talked about earlier, and to know what the requirements are when you go in. And part of that is just being prepared. But the other part is getting that confidence factor so that they're no longer scared about the cloud, and they can start to reap all the operational benefits that I talked about earlier with, easier patching and easier asset management, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all four of us here have one thing in common, that either we're currently or in the past, we're all vendors, right? But I think, a shout out to our viewers out there is that we're not just vendors. We are actually your best friends. We're actually your best friends. I mean, we actually have seen what your competitors have done, both, done correctly or incorrectly. And and we're here to help you. That's why we do what we do, right, Keith?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and especially, that was the reason for this series of podcasts. It was really to be evangelical and just, share tips, share words of wisdom that, I've seen my customers go through, Martin's seen his customers go through, you and Tim have seen people you've talked to go through. It's just, it's something simple. It's just, like I said, take a couple minutes and do some pre-planning, and then you're going to have to execute on your plan with whatever tools and solutions you want. Great, but just do a little bit more planning up front, because especially from visibility, I've seen a lot of our customers hadn't, and then once they go and they deploy our solution, which helps out FireEye and all these other guys, they can see tremendous benefits. Like, one is just getting access to data that's in a case for like mean time to repair and stuff. They can get a dramatic increase from that just by putting taps and a packet broker in the network, because it changed their whole change board process. So I can see a similar type of situation for them too, besides that, but also from the security perspective of change board processes involving their security solution as well, and some process improvements.
Good. Thank you, Keith. Hey, we should close the show. Martin, if our viewers want to know more about you and your company, I just put up your website. Can you kind of show them where they should go and get more to understand more of the solution?
Yeah, absolutely. And just FireEye.com will point you in the right direction. We're having a cloud security white paper that's coming out either next week or the week right after that, to really dive into a lot of what we've talked about here today. And we'll also be at RSA. In fact, I'm doing a learning lab at RSA this year. So if you're interested in getting some hands-on workshop-like activity to see firsthand how cloud attacks work and how to defend against them, sign up.
That sounds great.
Good. So Keith, I fire up the Ixia. Ixia is a big company, so the website is very encompassing. But there's another page. There's I think there's a page that if you click on any of the icons, any of the Ixia icons on Love My Tool, you get there. Explain this page.
So one of the things we created a couple months ago was an ebook for people called The Definitive Guide to Visibility Use Cases. So there's quite a few use cases where visibility can help with security, troubleshooting, performance. And this is, you can simply go in there, enter your credentials, and download. There's no cost for it, but it's a 90-page book that's got all of these different use cases. So it's not just, hey, you need visibility, this is what it can do for you, yada, yada, yada. This is more, so like what we talked about here, there's some specific use cases to go use. And I think there's about 15 on security alone. And then, like I said, there's 8 to 15 on 5 other different subjects. There's 6 subjects total.
Yeah.
Troubleshooting, compliance, and all that. So great resource, free. Go download it.
So besides being your best friend, we're also your tutor.
Yes.
It's a place to learn. Yeah. And, good. Thanks, Keith. Anything else you want to add? We've done quite a few of these already.
Just that we have more coming. So, like we've talked about, this is number 3, security. We've talked about troubleshooting and performance already. We're
Number
trying to
3
line up.
this year.
Yeah.
We done a lot more last year.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But just in this series, aligning with this use case ebook, we're looking at doing compliance and maybe another 1 or 2 after that. So
Good.
so
Good.
got more
We look
coming.
forward to that, Keith. And Martin, any last word to our viewers? Any important message?
As you're building out your cloud strategy, really understand the importance of visibility. And questions, get a hold of us.
Okay, thank you. Tim, your last word.
Nope, just nothing but people reach out, ask the experts. You can't know everything, and if you don't build a foundation for security, it doesn't matter what you use to store your data, where you do it, you got problems eventually. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't want that on my resume, that I worked for a company who was in charge of security and we were breached and we didn't really care about it. That would be a horrible legacy. So wake up, do it.
And Tim, you're looking great, by the way. We're very happy. That's why we do the show Waist Up. See, we showed the...
Well, I'm doing a lot better. So that's
good. Good.
Was hoping to be at Wireshark this year or Sharkfest this year, but don't think they're going to let me do it. So, but you know, it's the future. We got lots to do. And Martin, I would love to invite you, your team, contact us, write something, and let's keep this message going about it is not a sin to reach out and ask for help and knowledge.
Absolutely.
So. Well, with that, we're going to close the show. Thanks again, Keith. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Tim. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.